London. The world knows the name Ernest Shackleton. He is the titan of the ice, the man who is planning the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. His goal is to cross the entire continent of Antarctica on foot, but a crossing requires two sides. While Shackleton and the Endurance sail to the Weddell Sea to begin the march, another ship must sail to the other side of the world, to the Ross Sea. Their mission is simple but vital. They must lay food depots for Shackleton. If they fail, Shackleton will cross the pole, run out of food on the Beardmore Glacier, and die. This second group is the Ross Sea Party. They are the supporting cast. They are underfunded, under-equipped, and largely ignored by the press. The man chosen to lead them is Aeneas Mackintosh. Mackintosh is a man with something to prove. He was with Shackleton before, years ago, but lost an eye in an accident and had to be sent home. He carries a glass eye and a heavy heart. He feels he owes Shackleton a debt of honor. He is brave, dashing, and terrified of failure. He gathers his officers. Ernest Joyce, a cynical, hard-drinking polar veteran who trusts dogs more than he trusts officers. Joyce is the only one who truly knows the ice, and he makes sure everyone knows it. Dick Richards, a young physics teacher from Australia. Naive, fit, and eager for adventure. He has no idea that he is about to enter a freezer that will test the laws of physics he teaches. The Reverend Arnold Spencer-Smith, a chain-smoking chaplain and photographer. A man of God in a place that God often seems to forget. They gather in Australia to board their ship, the Aurora. But from the moment they arrive, the cracks begin to show. Sydney, Australia, late 1914. The Aurora is not the Endurance. The Endurance is a palace of oak and brass. The Aurora is a tired, leaking sealer that smells of old whale oil and neglect. Mackintosh arrives to find chaos. There is no money. Shackleton has taken all the funding for his side of the expedition. Mackintosh has to beg for supplies. He goes to the Australian government, hat in hand. He secures rusted cans of pemmican, second-hand sleeping bags, and dogs that are more wolf than husky. "We are the poor cousins," Joyce grumbles, kicking a crate of expired biscuits. Shackleton gets the glory. We get the scraps. But Mackintosh is undeterred. "The boss is counting on us," he tells the men. "If we are not there, he dies. It is that simple." The psychology of the trip is defined by this anxiety. They are not exploring for discovery. They are exploring to save a life that isn't even in danger yet. They set sail in December 1914. The voyage south is a nightmare of storms. The Aurora rolls 40 degrees. The men are seasick, wet, and miserable. Richards, the physicist, stands on the deck watching the albatrosses. He writes in his diary, "We are sailing off the edge of the map, in a ship that groans with every wave. But we are young, and we are immortal." He is 21. He has never felt the bite of frostbite. He thinks the cold is just a temperature. He doesn't know it is a predator. January 1915. McMurdo Sound. The Aurora anchors at Cape Evans, the site of Captain Scott's old hut. The ghost of Scott hangs heavy over this place. The hut is filled with the debris of the dead expedition: frozen seal meat, old magazines, empty bottles. Mackintosh is impatient. He wants to start laying depots immediately, even though the season is late and the dogs are not conditioned. "We must go now," Mackintosh orders. "We need to place the depot at 80 degrees south before winter sets in," Ernest Joyce argues. "The dogs aren't ready, Captain. The men aren't ready. If we push them now, we'll break them." But Mackintosh outranks him. They set out on the barrier, the Ross ice shelf. It is a world of white silence, flat, featureless, and deadly. The first sledging journey is a disaster of inexperience. The men suffer from thirst because they don't use enough fuel to melt snow. They suffer from blisters because their boots are ill-fitting. The dogs, sensing the weakness of the drivers, become rebellious. But they push on. They drag the sledges mile after mile, planting flags and leaving caches of food for a man who is thousands of miles away. Spencer-Smith, the chaplain, struggles. He is not built for hauling. He coughs in the thin, cold air. "Keep moving, Padre," Joyce barks. "Sweat freezes if you stop." February 1915. On the return journey from the depot laying, the trip takes its first dark turn. The sea ice is breaking up. Mackintosh and the sledging party are separated from the ship. They are stranded on the ice edge. The weather turns. The temperature drops to -30. Mackintosh, the leader who pushed so hard, begins to falter. He is exhausted. The stress of command is eating him alive. They make a desperate dash for the safety of Hut Point, an old drafty shelter miles from the main base at Cape Evans. They make it, but they are trapped. For weeks, Mackintosh, Joyce, and a small group are stuck at Hut Point living on seal meat and blubber smoke. They can see the aurora across the sound, frozen in the ice at Cape Evans. "So close," Mackintosh whispers, looking out the frosted window with his one good eye. But the ice is too thin to cross. The group is fractured. Joyce thinks Mackintosh is incompetent. Mackintosh thinks Joyce is insubordinate. Richards tries to keep the peace. He realizes that the hierarchy of the Navy doesn't work here. On the ice, the leader is the man who can light the stove the fastest. They wait for the sea ice to harden so they can return to the ship and the comfort of their bunks. They dream of the aurora. She is their mother, their warmth, their ticket home. They do not know that the ice is already conspiring to take her away. May 6, 1915. The men are finally back at Cape Evans. Most of the shore party is living in the hut. The aurora is moored offshore, frozen solid into the pack ice. It is the middle of the Antarctic winter. Permanent darkness. A blizzard begins. It is a southerly buster, a hurricane of wind and snow that screams down from the polar plateau. The hut shakes. The men huddle around the stove, playing cards, drinking tea. Outside, the physics of the ice are changing. The immense pressure of the wind is pushing the miles-thick sheet of sea ice. At 3 a.m., the first officer on the Aurora feels a shudder, then a crack, like a cannon shot. The mooring cables, heavy steel hawsers, snap with the sound of gunshots. The ice field, holding the ship, shears away from the land. In the hut, the men hear nothing over the roar of the wind. The next morning, the storm clears. Richard steps out of the hut to feed the dogs. He looks out at the bay. He blinks. He rubs his eyes. The bay is empty. There is only open water, steaming in the cold. The Aurora is gone. She has been blown out to sea with most of the food, the fuel, the clean clothes, and the coal. 10 men are left standing on the shore. They have the clothes on their backs. They have the scraps left in Scott's old hut. And they have a mission to lay depots for Shackleton next season. Mackintosh stands by the water's edge. "She's gone," he says. "The trip is over. The disaster has begun." May 1915, Cape Evans. The wind has died down, but the silence it leaves behind is worse. Mackintosh gathers the 10 men in the main room of Captain Scott's old hut. It is a large wooden structure, smelling of ancient tobacco smoke, seal grease, and the decay of the 1911 expedition. "The ship is gone," Mackintosh says, his voice flat. "We have to assume she is lost with all hands, or she is trapped in the ice and drifting north. Either way, she is not coming back this winter." Joyce, the cynic, leans against a bunk. "And the food, Captain?" They take stock. It is a grim arithmetic. They have plenty of seal meat, if they can hunt. They have some flour and biscuits left over from Scott's party. But they have no soap, no fresh clothes, no tobacco, no medical supplies. Most critically, they have almost no fuel for the sledging stoves. Without fuel, you cannot melt snow on the march. Without water, you die of thirst in a desert of ice. They are 10 men living in the wreckage of a ghost story. Richards, the physicist, looks at the shelves. He sees old magazines from 1910. He sees a half-empty bottle of ketchup. "We are not explorers anymore," Richards writes in his diary. "We are castaways. We are Robinson Crusoes on a frozen island." But unlike Crusoe, they have a job to do. "Shackleton is coming," Mackintosh reminds them. "He is crossing the continent right now. He is counting on us to put food at the Beardmore Glacier. If we don't go, he starves." The mission hasn't changed. Only the odds have. June 1915, the deep winter. The cold inside the hut is pervasive. The men's clothes, the heavy woolens they arrived in, are falling apart. They are stiff with grease and soot. They begin to scavenge. They raid the supply dumps left by Scott. They find old sleeping bags that are frozen into solid blocks of ice. They have to thaw them out over the blubber stove, filling the hut with the stench of wet, rotten fur. They need trousers. Joyce finds a stash of heavy canvas curtains used by Scott to separate the bunks. "Get the needles," Joyce orders. They sit in the dim light of the blubber lamps, sewing trousers out of curtains. They make boots out of old canvas instrument cases. They are wearing the debris of dead men. Spencer-Smith, the chaplain, tries to keep morale up. He holds services on Sundays. He reads from the few books they have. But the men are changing. Their hair is long and matted. Their skin is blackened by the soot from the blubber stove. They look like prehistoric creatures. Mackintosh paces the floor. His glass eye is irritating him in the cold. He is terrified that Shackleton will arrive at the Beardmore and find nothing. "We must go in September," Mackintosh says, "as soon as the sun returns." "It's too early," Joyce argues. "The dogs are weak. The men are weak. We go," Mackintosh snaps. "Or we fail." July 1915. Richards proves his worth. He is not a sailor, but he understands energy. The greatest problem is light and heat. They have no kerosene for the lamps. Richards designs a system to render seal blubber into a clean burning oil. It is a messy, stinking process. They have to kill the seals on the ice, drag the heavy carcasses miles back to the hut, skin them, and boil the fat. The hut becomes a slaughterhouse. The floor is slick with blood. The smell is thick and cloying, a mix of copper and rancid fat. But it works. They have light. Richards also begins to calculate the depot weights. "We need to carry 4,000 pounds of supplies to the Beardmore," he tells Mackintosh. "That's 400 pounds per man, dragging sledges over rough ice for 400 miles. He looks at the men. They are thin. Their gums are starting to bleed. The first quiet whisper of scurvy. "We don't have the calories, Captain." Mackintosh ignores the math. He is operating on sheer Victorian willpower. "We will make the calories," he says. "We will eat the dogs if we have to." September 1915. The sun returns, a pale, weak disk on the horizon. The trip begins in earnest. They load the sledges. The Primus stoves are erratic. The sleeping bags are still damp. They harness the dogs. The animals are fierce, half wild and hungry. They step out onto the barrier. The wind hits them immediately, minus 30 degrees. The first few days are a torture of adjustment. The men are hauling in harness alongside the dogs. The straps dig into their shoulders. The canvas trousers chafe their skin until it is raw. They march in a line, heads down, staring at the heels of the man in front. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The silence of the barrier is absolute. There is no sound but the wind and the panting of the dogs. Joyce is the dog master. He runs the team with a whip and a constant stream of curses. He loves the dogs more than he loves the officers. "Pull, you bastards," he screams. "Pull, or we all die." Mackintosh is struggling. He is not as fit as Joyce or Richards. He falls behind, then forces himself to catch up. He is hiding his weakness, but the men see it. They see him stumble. They see him rubbing his legs at night in the tent. December 1915. They have been marching for months. They are relaying the loads, moving half the supplies forward, then walking back to get the rest. For every mile of progress, they walk 3. They reach the foot of the Beardmore Glacier, the gateway to the pole. This is the target. This is where they must build the final, life-saving depot. It is a cathedral of ice. Massive, jagged peaks rise on either side. The glacier itself is a chaotic river of frozen pressure, ridges and crevasses. "This is it," Mackintosh says. "We build it here." They build a cairn of snow blocks. They top it with a bamboo pole and a black flag. Inside, they place the precious rations for Shackleton: pemmican, biscuits, sugar. They have done it. They have fulfilled the mission. But the cost has been exorbitant. Spencer-Smith, the chaplain, can no longer walk. His legs are swollen and black with scurvy. Mackintosh is barely upright. His gums are swollen over his teeth. They are 400 miles from home. They have almost no food for themselves. The trip is over. The disaster is now a race against their own decomposing bodies. January 1916. The return. They put Spencer-Smith on a sledge. He is a dead weight. He is delirious. He talks about his parish in Scotland. He talks about the tea he will drink. "Leave me," he whispers during a lucid moment. "I'm slowing you down." "We don't leave men," Joyce says. But the pace is agonizingly slow. The blizzards are relentless. They are running out of fuel. Richards looks at the stove. "We have 2 days of oil left," he says. "It's 8 days to the next depot." They have to make a choice. Do they starve together, or do they split up? Mackintosh makes the decision. He too is failing. His legs are purple and hard as wood. "Joyce," Mackintosh says, "you take the dogs. You go ahead. Get food. Come back for us." It is a gamble. If Joyce fails, they all die. Joyce looks at the dogs. They are skeletons with fur. "I'll be back," Joyce says. He cracks the whip. The sled disappears into the white. Mackintosh, Richards, and the dying Spencer-Smith are left alone in a tent on the ice, listening to the wind and waiting for the end. February 1916. The Great Ice Barrier. The expedition has split. Ernest Joyce, the dog driver, along with Richards and Hayward, pushes ahead with the dogs to the next depot to get food and fuel. Behind them, miles back in a lonely tent, lie Captain Mackintosh and the Reverend Spencer-Smith. Both men are crippled by scurvy. Their legs are swollen, black, and hard as wood. Their gums are bleeding. They cannot walk. Joyce drives the dogs mercilessly. "Mush, mush, you bastards." The dogs are skeletons. Their ribs show through their matted fur. They are eating their own harnesses. Joyce reaches the depot. He grabs the seal meat and the precious kerosene. He turns around. He doesn't rest. He races back into the teeth of a blizzard to find the dying men. He finds the tent almost buried in snow. Inside, Mackintosh is delirious. Spencer-Smith is barely conscious. The temperature is 40 below. "We're here, Captain," Joyce says, shaking Mackintosh. "We've got the fuel." They feed them hot seal broth. It is the only medicine they have. Then, they load the 2 invalids onto the sledges. The dogs cannot pull the weight alone. Joyce, Richards, and Wild harness themselves alongside the animals. They are human pack mules now. They drag the sledges, inch by inch, through the soft, clinging snow. Every step is a victory. Every mile is a war. March 8, 1916. They are still 40 miles from safety. Spencer-Smith is fading. The scurvy has reached his heart. He asks them to stop. "I'm done," he whispers. "Leave me here in my sleeping bag. I'll be fine." "We don't leave men," Richard says, his voice cracking. But the next morning, the chaplain doesn't wake up. He died quietly in the night, surrounded by the men he tried to comfort. They bury him in the snow. They build a cross out of 2 bamboo poles. Joyce stands over the grave. He is not a religious man, but he takes off his mittens. "He was a good man," Joyce says. "He never complained, not once." They leave him there in the vast white silence. The party is now down to 5. Mackintosh is the next to go. He is drifting in and out of a coma. Richards looks at Joyce. "If we don't make Hut Point in 2 days," Richards says, "the captain dies too." March 11, 1916. They are dragging Mackintosh on the sledge. The dogs are finished. They lie down in the snow and refuse to move. Joyce beats them, screams at them, cries with them. Finally, he unharnesses them. Richards wild in the traces. The 3 men pull the sledge themselves. They are hallucinating from exhaustion. Richards sees castles on the horizon. Joyce sees a warm pub in London. They reach the edge of the sea ice. Ahead of them lies the old Discovery hut at Hut Point. It is a large wooden structure built by Scott in 1902. It is drafty, filled with snow, and smells of ancient penguin guano. But to these men, it is the Ritz. They drag Mackintosh through the door. They collapse on the floor. They have made it. They have marched 1,600 miles in 160 days. They have laid the depots for Shackleton. They have lost 1 man. But they are alive. March to May 1916. Hut Point becomes their prison. They are safe from the wind, but they are trapped. The sea ice between Hut Point and Cape Evans, where the main hut is, has blown out. Open water separates them from comfort, books, and soap. They are living like animals. They have no fuel. They have to burn seal blubber in an old stove to melt ice for water. The smoke is thick, oily, and black. It coats everything. Their faces become masks of soot. Their clothes are stiff with grease. They hunt seals to survive. Joyce becomes the butcher. He kills the seals on the ice, drags them in, and cuts them up. They eat nothing but seal meat. Fried seal, boiled seal, raw seal brains. The fresh meat cures the scurvy. Mackintosh's legs begin to heal. His gums firm up. He starts to walk again, hobbling around the hut on sticks. But his mind is restless. He feels the weight of command. He feels guilty about Spencer-Smith. He stares out the window at the open water. "We have to get back to Cape Evans," he says. "The others are there. They don't know if we're alive." Joyce shakes his head. "The ice is too thin, Captain. It's moving." "It will hold," Mackintosh insists. "I know ice." It is a fatal confidence. May 8, 1916. A blizzard is blowing outside. Mackintosh announces he is leaving. "I'm crossing to Cape Evans," he says. "Hayward is coming with me." Hayward is another member of the party who is eager to return to civilization. Joyce pleads with them. "Don't go. The ice is rotten. You'll fall through in a minute." Richards joins in. "Wait a week, Captain. Let it freeze solid." Mackintosh is adamant. He is the leader. He needs to reassert his authority. He needs to prove he is still capable. "We're going," he says. He packs a small bag. He takes a walking stick. He and Hayward step out into the storm. Joyce watches them disappear into the white swirling snow. He turns to Richards. "We'll never see them again," Joyce says. He is right. An hour later, the blizzard intensifies. The wind screams at 70 miles an hour. The sea ice breaks up. Mackintosh and Hayward are gone. swallowed by the black water of McMurdo Sound. The disaster has claimed 2 more. Now, there are only 3 men left at Hut Point: Joyce, Richards, and Wild. They are alone. June to July 1916. The sun goes down for the winter. The 3 survivors settle into a grim routine. They are the scavengers of the South. They sleep in old sleeping bags they dug out of the ice. They use seal skulls as lamps. They talk about food. They list every meal they ever ate. Richards, the physicist, tries to explain the thermodynamics of the stove to keep their minds active. Wild listens politely. Joyce just grunts and sharpens his knife. They are waiting for the sea ice to freeze hard enough so they can walk the 15 miles to Cape Evans and rejoin the rest of the party. They wonder about the Aurora. Is the ship at the bottom of the ocean? Are they the only people left on the continent? Richards writes in his diary, "We are 3 black specks in a white room. The silence is so loud it hurts my ears. But we are still here. We are still breathing. They have survived the march. They have survived the scurvy. Now they just have to survive the waiting. We must rewind the clock to understand the silence." While Mackintosh and the others were dragging sledges across the barrier, their lifeline, the ship Aurora, was fighting its own war. May 1915. The night the cables snapped. Captain Aeneas Stenhouse is on the bridge. He is young, competent, and horrified. The blizzard that tore the Aurora from her moorings at Cape Evans didn't just push her into open water. It pushed her into the crushing grip of the moving pack ice. The ship is a prisoner. She is encased in millions of tons of ice, drifting north, away from the men on the shore. Stenhouse tries to maneuver, but the rudder is smashed by a massive flow. The screw is bent. The engines are useless against the pressure. He calls the wireless operator Lionel Hook. "Send a signal," Stenhouse orders. "Tell them we are adrift. Tell King George. Tell anyone." Hook taps the key. SOS. SOS. Aurora adrift. Ross Sea. But the aerials were damaged in the storm. The signal goes out into the void and dies. Hook can hear the crackle of static, the sound of the Aurora Australis interfering with the radio waves. But he gets no answer. On the shore, 10 men watch the bay empty. On the ship, 18 men watch the shore disappear into the white darkness. They are drifting at the mercy of the current. They have the food. They have the coal. They have the clothes. And they are utterly powerless to turn back. Winter, 1915. The Southern Ocean. The drift lasts for 10 months. The Aurora travels 1,200 miles, locked in the ice. The pressure is immense. The ice squeezes the hull like a vice. Inside, the beams groan and snap. The deck warps. Water trickles into the hold. Stenhouse prepares to abandon ship. He orders the sledges packed. He orders the men to sleep in their clothes. "If she cracks," Stenhouse tells the crew, "we go onto the ice. We walk to New Zealand." It is a suicide plan, but it is all they have. They live in constant fear of the noise, the screaming of the timber as the ice tries to crush the ship. They are running out of coal. They burn seal blubber in the boilers just to keep the pipes from freezing. They catch penguins on the floes to eat. They are scurvy-ridden and depressed, but the ship holds. She is an old sealer, built of thick oak, and she refuses to die. Finally, in March 1916, the ice begins to break up north of the Antarctic Circle. The Aurora is released. She is battered, leaking, and steering with a jury-rigged rudder. Stenhouse makes a decision. "We cannot go back," he says, looking south. "We have no fuel. We have no rudder. We have to limp to New Zealand." He knows he is condemning the shore party to another year on the ice. The guilt nearly breaks him. July 1916, back on the ice. At Hut Point, the 3 survivors, Joyce, Richards, and Wild, are still waiting. They do not know the Aurora has survived. They assume she is at the bottom of the Ross Sea. The middle of winter brings the thickest ice. The bay between Hut Point and Cape Evans finally freezes solid. "It's time," Joyce says. They pack their meager belongings. They leave the smoky, seal-stained squalor of Hut Point. They walk the 15 miles across the frozen sea to Cape Evans. It is a journey of ghosts. They arrive at the main hut, the place they left almost a year ago. It is buried in snowdrifts. Smoke is curling from the chimney. They kick the snow off their boots and push open the door. Inside, the 4 scientists who were left behind, Stevens, Cope, Jack, and Gaze, stare at them in shock. The scientists are relatively clean. They have books. They have specimens. Joyce, Richards, and Wilde look like wild animals. Their hair hangs to their shoulders. Their skin is black with blubber soot. They smell of blood and death. "My God," Stevens says, "we thought you were all dead." Joyce looks around the warm room. He sees the laboratory equipment. He sees the comfort. "Where's the captain?" Joyce asks. The scientists look confused. "He left Hut Point months ago," Richard says, his voice rising. "He and Hayward. They crossed the ice in May." Silence falls over the hut. Stevens shakes his head slowly. They never arrived. The reunion turns into a wake. The realization hits them. Mackintosh and Hayward didn't make it. Joyce, despite his exhaustion, goes back out. He takes Richards and a few others. They walk along the shoreline, scanning the ice with lanterns in the polar darkness. They find faint tracks, footprints leading away from Hut Point. They follow them for 2 miles. Then the tracks stop. They stop at the edge of a jagged line where the old ice meets new, thin ice. Richards kneels down. He touches the snow. "They walked right into it," he whispers. The blizzard in May had blown the sea ice out just hours after they left. They would have been walking in a whiteout. They wouldn't have seen the water until they stepped into it. The Ross Sea had swallowed the leader of the expedition and his companion. There are no bodies to bury. There is only the dark water and the wind. Joyce stands up. He is now the de facto leader. "Let's go back," he says. "There's nothing here but the cold." August 1916 to December 1916. The party is now 7 men. They are trapped at Cape Evans. They have missed the window for a ship to return. Even if the Aurora survived, she couldn't get back through the pack ice until next summer. They face a second winter. The psychological strain is immense. Richards throws himself into science. He records meteorological data every 4 hours, day and night. He becomes the keeper of the routine. Joyce throws himself into work. He sews clothes from old canvas. He repairs the sledges. He cares for the remaining dogs, the dogs that saved their lives on the barrier. They talk about the depots. "Did we do enough?" Wilde asks one night, staring at the fire. "Is Shackleton safe?" They have no way of knowing that Shackleton's ship, the Endurance, was crushed months ago on the other side of the continent. They have no way of knowing that Shackleton never even started his march. They dragged 4,000 pounds of food to the Beardmore Glacier for a man who will never come. The irony hangs over the hut like a fog, but they don't know it. So they keep waiting. They ration the flour. They hunt seals. They wait for the sun. January 1917. The summer comes again. The ice breaks up. The men spend their days on the lookout hill, staring north. Richards is in the hut, calibrating a thermometer. Suddenly, the door bursts open. It is Joyce. He is breathless. His eyes are wide. "A ship!" he screams. "A ship!" They run out. They scramble up the icy rocks. There on the horizon is a funnel, smoke, a mast. It is the Aurora. She has been repaired in New Zealand. She has returned. But she is not alone. Stenhouse is no longer the captain. The government has taken over the rescue mission. And on the deck of the Aurora, standing in a heavy coat, looking through binoculars at the 7 ragged men on the shore, is a familiar figure. It is Ernest Shackleton himself. He has come to rescue the men who saved him. January 10th, 1917. Cape Evans. The Aurora anchors just off the ice edge. For the 7 survivors standing on the shore, Joyce, Richards, Wild, Jack, Gaze, Cope, and Stevens, the sight is almost hallucinatory. They have stared at an empty horizon for 20 months. Now there is steel, smoke, and the Union Jack. They don't cheer. They don't wave frantically. They stand in a huddled group, their canvas clothes stiff with seal grease, their hair matted to their shoulders, their skin black with soot. They look like prehistoric men encountering a spaceship. Richards, the physicist, finds himself shaking. It isn't the cold. It is the sudden violent intrusion of the outside world. A whaleboat is lowered from the Aurora. They watch the oars dip into the black water. Splash, 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 the rhythm of civilization coming to get them. Joyce steps forward. He is the leader now. He checks his knife. It is a reflex. On the ice, you are always ready to kill or cut. As the boat nears the fast ice, a figure stands up in the prow. He is wearing a heavy bridge coat and a naval cap. He looks older than the pictures in the magazines. His face is lined with a deep, weary sadness. It is Ernest Shackleton, the boss, the man they dragged 4,000 pounds of food across a continent to save. The boat crunches against the ice. Shackleton jumps ashore. He doesn't wait for the sailors. He walks toward the group of 7 wild men. He stops 5 feet away. He looks at them, his eyes scanning their faces, counting them. 7, Shackleton says softly. Where are the others? Joyce straightens his back. He salutes, a clumsy, rusted gesture. Captain Mackintosh is dead, sir. So is Hayward. And the Reverend Spencer-Smith. Shackleton flinches. It is a physical blow. He takes off his cap. How? Scurvy, sir, and the sea ice. There is a long silence on the ice. The wind whistles through the rigging of the Aurora in the distance. Then Richard speaks up. His voice is a croak, unused to shouting. But the depots, sir, we laid them. Shackleton looks at him, confused. The depots? Yes, sir, Joyce interrupts, his chest swelling with a fierce, desperate pride. We put the food at the Mount Hope depot, at 83 degrees south. We did it. We lost 3 men, but we put the food there for you. Joyce points south, toward the Beardmore Glacier. It's waiting for you, boss. Plenty of pemmican, plenty of oil. You can cross safely. Shackleton looks at Joyce. Then he looks at Richards. He sees the utter exhaustion in their eyes, the scars of the scurvy, the starvation etched into their bones. He realizes what they have done. They have completed the mission. They have fulfilled their contract, and he has to tell them the truth. Shackleton steps closer. He puts a hand on Joyce's shoulder. The wool of his coat feels alien against Joyce's grease-stained canvas. You laid the depots, Shackleton repeats. My God! Did you cross, sir? Richards asks. Did you make it from the Weddell Sea? Shackleton shakes his head slowly. No, he says. My ship, the Endurance, she was crushed before we even landed. The words hang in the cold air. Crushed? We never started the march, Shackleton says. We spent the last 2 years drifting on the ice. We just got back to civilization ourselves. The 7 men stand frozen. The implication hits them like a sledgehammer. They marched 1,600 miles. They harnessed themselves to sledges like mules. They starved. They watched Spencer-Smith rot from the inside out. They lost Mackintosh to the dark water. And they did it for a crossing that never happened. The depots are sitting there, at the foot of the Beardmore Glacier, piled high with food that no one will ever eat. Richards feels a laugh bubbling up in his chest, a hysterical, dark laugh. "For nothing?" he whispers. Shackleton grips Joyce's shoulder tighter. "Not for nothing," Shackleton says fiercely. "You did what you said you would do. No men have ever done more. You kept your word." It is a small comfort, but it is the only one he can give them. They pack up. It takes only a few hours. They have almost nothing to bring back. Richards packs his meteorological logs, the meticulous records of temperature and pressure he kept every 4 hours for 2 years. They are his sanity, bound in leather. Joyce packs the dog harnesses. He looks at the remaining dogs, Gunner, Oscar, Towser. They are wolves now, survivors of the barrier. "You're coming with us," Joyce tells them. "No more ice for you." They walk through the hut one last time. It is a hovel. The walls are black with soot. The floor is covered in blubber and seal bones. But it was home. It was the shell that kept them alive when the universe tried to kill them. Richards looks at the bunk where Spencer-Smith used to lie, smoking his pipe and reading the Bible. He looks at the table where Mackintosh used to plan the depots, tracing lines on a map with his finger. They leave a note nailed to the door. It lists the names of the dead. Then they step out. They board the whaleboat. As they row away, they look back at Cape Evans. The hut looks tiny against the backdrop of Mount Erebus, the smoking volcano. The trip is truly over. The disaster is resolved. But they are leaving their ghosts behind. February 1917. Wellington, New Zealand. The Aurora docks. The world has changed while they were gone. The Great War, World War I, is raging in Europe. Millions of men are dying in trenches in France. The crowds on the dock are smaller than they expected. The newspapers are full of battles, not explorers. The 7 survivors walk down the gangplank. They are clean now. They are shaved. They are wearing ill-fitting suits provided by the New Zealand government. But they walk with a strange, wide-legged gait, the sledge shuffle. People stare at them. They look like men who have seen the other side of death. Reporters shove microphones in their faces. "Mr. Joyce, Mr. Joyce, tell us about the dogs." "Mr. Richards, is it true you ate raw seal?" They answer in monosyllables. The noise of the city, the trams, the cars, the shouting is overwhelming. Shackleton steps in front of them. He fields the questions. He is the showman, the protector. "These men are heroes," Shackleton tells the press. "They are the Iron Men of the South." But Richard stands at the back of the group, looking at the hills of Wellington. They are green. He hasn't seen green in 2 years. He starts to cry. Quietly. Helplessly. He isn't crying for himself. He is crying for the depots. He is thinking of the cairn of snow at 83 degrees south, with the black flag whipping in the wind, guarding a pile of food that will sit there until the end of time. A monument to a promise kept. The survivors try to reintegrate. It is not easy. Joyce drinks. He tells stories in bars, but people think he is exaggerating. Nobody could pull a sledge for 6 months, they say. Richards goes back to teaching physics. He stands in front of a chalkboard, explaining the laws of thermodynamics. He looks at the students. They are young, soft. They complain about the draft in the classroom. Richards wants to scream. He wants to tell them that he knows the exact temperature at which the human spirit freezes. But he says nothing. He writes equations on the board. The Ross Sea Party begins to fade from memory. Shackleton is the legend. The Endurance is the story everyone knows. The ship that was crushed, the open boat journey to South Georgia. The men of the Aurora are a footnote. They are the other party. The ones who didn't get the glory, only the scurvy. But amongst themselves, they share a bond that cannot be broken. They send letters to each other. "Do you remember the seal soup?" Joyce writes. "Do you remember the Padre?" Richards replies. "They are a secret society of 7. The only men on Earth who know what it costs to be a hero when no one is watching." London. The Great War is over. The heroic age of Antarctic exploration is fading into history, replaced by the mechanical age of airplanes and radios. The survivors of the Ross Sea Party are scattered. They have returned to a world that doesn't quite know what to do with them. They are finally recognized. The King awards the Albert Medal, the highest civilian award for gallantry, to 4 men: Ernest Joyce, Dick Richards, Victor Hayward posthumously, and Wilde. It is a moment of validation, but it is also a moment of bitterness. Joyce holds the medal in his hand. It is gold and bronze. It is heavy. "It doesn't weigh as much as a sledge," he tells a reporter, "and it doesn't keep you warm." The public is confused. They know Shackleton. They know Scott. But who are these men? "We are the forgotten ones," Joyce says. "We are the shadow of the Endurance." Joyce spends his later years trying to monetize his fame. He writes a book. He gives lectures. He becomes a character in the London pubs, an eccentric, loud man with a scarred face who tells wild stories about eating dogs and sewing trousers from curtains. People buy him drinks, but they whisper behind his back. They think he is exaggerating. They don't understand that for Joyce, the ice never melted. He is still out there, on the barrier, cracking the whip. Dick Richards takes a different path. He returns to Australia. He becomes a headmaster. He teaches science and mathematics to generations of schoolboys. He is a quiet man. He wears suits. He grades papers. But he keeps the diary, the leather-bound log of the Ross Sea Party. He lives a long life. Decades pass. The world changes. Men walk on the moon. Richards watches it all from his study. He is the last survivor of the heroic age. By the 1980s, he is the only man left alive who served with Shackleton. Journalists come to interview him. They find an old man, sharp as a tack, sitting in a sunlit room. "Mr. Richards," they ask, "was it worth it? The suffering? The death?" Richards looks out the window. He sees the green eucalyptus trees. "It was not about worth," Richards says softly. "It was about duty. We gave our word. In 1914, a man's word was his bond. If we had failed and Shackleton had crossed, he would have died. We could not live with that possibility." He pauses. "We didn't know he wasn't coming. But that doesn't matter. We were there." Richards dies in 1985 at the age of 91. With him, the last living memory of the Ross Sea Party is extinguished, but the physical memory remains. The International Geophysical Year. Modern explorers return to Antarctica. They have tractors. They have heated bases. They have helicopters. They travel to the Ross Ice Shelf. They fly over the route of the Great March, and there, sitting in the vast whiteness at 83 degrees south, they find something impossible: the Mount Hope Depot. It is still there. The snow cairn has been eroded by 40 years of blizzards, but the bamboo pole is still standing. The black flag is tattered but visible. They land the helicopter. They walk up to the depot. They dig. They find the sledge. They find the boxes. They open them. Inside, perfectly preserved by the deep freeze, is the food. Tins of pemmican, biscuits, sugar, chocolate, matches. It is exactly as Joyce, Richards, and Wilde left it in 1916. It is a time capsule of sacrifice. The explorers stand in silence. They realize they are looking at a holy grail that was never touched. This is the food that killed Spencer-Smith. This is the food that cost Mackintosh his life. It sits there, waiting for a ghost that never arrived. They do not take it. They leave it. It belongs to the ice. It belongs to the men who put it there. Today, If you go to Cape Evans, you can enter the hut. It has been preserved by the Antarctic Heritage Trust. You step through the door and the smell hits you instantly. It is the smell of 1916. Seal blubber, soot, old leather. You can see the table where Mackintosh sat. You can see the bunk where Spencer-Smith died. On the wall, near the stove, is a pair of trousers. They are made of heavy canvas curtains. The stitching is crude, done with a sailmaker's needle by freezing fingers in the dark. They are the trousers of the dead. They hang there as a testament to human ingenuity. Visitors walk through in hushed silence. They feel the presence of the 10 men. They see the graffiti carved into the wood by Joyce. They see the scientific equipment left by Richards. It is not a museum. It is a church of survival. It is the place where ordinary men, teachers, sailors, chaplains, were forced to become giants. We remember the names that shine. We remember Scott. We remember Amundsen. We remember Shackleton. They are the stars of the Antarctic sky. But the Ross Sea Party? They are the dark matter that holds the galaxy together. They were the forgotten men, the B Team, the expendables. They had no ship. They had no money. They had no glory. But they had a promise. And in the end, that was enough to drive them across 800 miles of hell. They remind us that heroism isn't always about planting a flag at the pole. Sometimes, heroism is simply dragging a sledge one more mile because you said you would. Sometimes, the greatest victory is not in what you find, but in what you leave behind. At 83 degrees south, the food is still waiting. A monument to the word of a gentle physicist, a wild dog driver, and a one-eyed captain. They kept the faith, and the ice keeps their secret.